What is up, CSGs? In this video, I'm going to break down why I think the Rockets are losing. Tap in right now. Enjoy. The Rockets Chop Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basketball needs, for highlights, analysis, podcasts. We do it all here at the Rockets Chop Shop. Make sure you hit the like button on the videos that you watch if you enjoy them. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications from all the great drops that we have on the channel. Also, you can visit the Chop Shop merch store and get you some of the swaggiest gear in the Houston Rockets kingdom. And if you want, you can always support the channel directly through donations. And if you want, you can support us through our partnerships with our sponsors. The Rockets Chop Shop is made by fans, for fans, and we're going to keep rocking and keep dropping that heat. From me. This is something I know, I know. So the Rockets are on a 5-game losing streak, coming off of one of the hottest months that they've had in a long, long time. And yeah, there's some things that I'm noticing that teams are starting to do against us that is forcing us to play this way. I think the most easiest way to explain why we're losing is we're playing better teams, right? We're playing better teams that are making it tougher on us to be able to do what we want to do, right? Which is get stops and get in transition. And when you're playing against teams like Dallas, who we just lost to in overtime, where you got guys like Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, you really can't dictate to them that you're going to get stops, right? You can't just say, we're going to get stops. It's easier said than done. So I guess, what do you do when you're not able to get stops, right? And usually with teams that can't get stops, in this NBA, in today's NBA, you have to be able to score. And the Rockets, even though they're putting up a lot of points, a lot of it, especially this past 5 games, have been based on just random hot shooting from random players like Dillon Brooks, like Jeff Green, role players playing above and beyond. Some of our star players like Jaylen Green has been a no-show for the past 5 games, and it's on purpose, and there's a reason why. But as you guys know, I like to come with solutions. Not all is lost, right? Not all is lost. I think that a lot of the things that we're seeing with the Rockets and how bad we've looked over these last few games are schematic. And I think these are things that Coach Udoka and the staff can improve upon just by getting players back healthy, improving the roster, and just drawing up better plays. But I'm going to get into some of the numbers through these 5 games. I'm going to compare them also to the 9-game stretch after Sengun's injury and then the season before that. So up until Sengun's injury from the first game of the season. The reason I'm doing that is because we've played multiple styles throughout this time. Leading up to Sengun's injury, we played a certain style, obviously with him being on the court. Then when he got hurt during the March stretch that we had all those games that we were winning, we played another style. And then now we're playing the good teams again, and they've kind of forced us to play a different style. So I'm going to look at some of the data from that, and we can go through and see why we're losing. Then I'll circle back around and give y'all some solutions as to how we can address this. Enjoy. So just some important stats to set the table on this. I think, like I said in the opening, number one thing that you can attribute this 5-game losing streak to is going to be the teams that we're playing. The competition is better. If you look at the teams we played in March, a lot of losing teams. You look at some of the defensive ranks for these teams. Utah, 30th ranked defense. We played them twice. You played Portland, who was a 23rd ranked defense. You played Washington, 28th ranked defense. You played them twice. You played, Chicago, 21st ranked defense. San Antonio, 22nd ranked defense. Of the 2 top defenses we did play were Oklahoma City and the Cleveland Cavs, 6 and 7 respectively. And those were big wins for us, good wins that really showed what we were doing was, not just fluky, but there is a lot of luck involved in the stretch of games that the Rockets were able to play. You fast forward to these 5 games in April, you got Dallas, 18th ranked defense, but 7th ranked offense. Obviously, they have a powerhouse. You got Minnesota, number 1 ranked defense, Golden State fighting for their lives, 15th defense, Miami, the number 4 defense, and then Dallas again. So the class of team is definitely leveled up, but I mean, there are some notable things that these defenses are doing against our team that is forcing us to kind of struggle in these games. But let's get some general stats out the way. So during this last 5-game streak, the Rockets' offensive rating is at 111.5, which ranks 19th in the NBA. So this is a far drop from that 9-game winning streak where the offensive rating was 121.6, which ranks second, right? obviously, as I just listed off the defensive ranks of these teams we're playing and us being able to impose our will on them, it does make sense. It makes a lot of sense how you could just beat up on the 28th ranked defense, get stops on them, especially most of them are bad in offense, and run in transition, be able to score at will. And a lot of these teams were playing Jalen Green one-on-one, right? Nobody was really trapping Jalen yet. And just to give you guys a precursor, that's a big reason why we're struggling in these games, because of Jalen being trapped. In the first 64 games, our offensive rating was 112.5, which will rank 24th. Defensive rating. Here's where I'm so disappointed the most with our team's performance. 126.4. That's dead last in the NBA in that 5-game stretch. This is coming off of a 109.4 seventh ranked defensive rating during the March stretch, and then in the first 64 games with everybody there, we were 7th. So we've been consistently a 7th ranked defense, roughly 5 to 7 for the most of the year, and we're falling off the face of the earth in April, which is really disappointing because we've slipped down to 10th in defensive rating in the NBA. I would just hate for us to slip out of the top 10. Right, off of just one bad month. So the team really has to lock in because we got a lot of agendas to protect with that 10th defensive rating, in my opinion. Another key metric that I do want to look at is the pace, right? This was something that was harped upon by Coach Udoka coming out of the All-Star break, and the pace was increased. And the pace really steadily has been increased over the season. And, I always want to make the clarification for people that like to say we've played with this amazing amount of pace. The pace is different than transition. The Rockets in this stretch, especially during the 9 games, have gotten into transition just way more. And I think, as I said in the previous video, that is a huge reason being is Amen Thompson in the starting lineup. Amen Thompson is a human fast break, just like Russell Westbrook was when he was in his prime. Even now, Russ on the Clippers really impacted their fast break points. And that's what Amen Thompson does for us on our team. He makes us a team that plays fast because he forces the issue. And obviously him being a great defender along with Fred and some of the other guys, Jalen playing the passing lanes, you're able to get out and run with speed and athleticism, really changes the dynamic of the team in transition. But when it comes to pace, it's a bit of a misunderstanding that a lot of people have. In the last 5 games, the Rockets have a pace of 98.84, which will rank 14th in the NBA. This is actually slower than their first 64 games. And during their winning streak, their pace was 99.84 compared to 99.58 for the rest of the season. So the pace during the winning streak was not really different, right? What we've seen now is the pace has really slowed down to a grind. And you watch these games, and this does lead to what we see with Jalen being trapped. When you are forcing a team to play into half court, right? When you're forcing them to have to make a decision about where the ball is going to go, you really slow down the pace for them. And for us as a team, when we're playing that slow, we don't have the shot makers to be able to just survive that. A lot of our players aren't able to create their own shots, so teams and defenses are able to scheme against that. If you take away the primary option, Jalen Green, then you're forcing guys like Dylan Brooks to have to hit a lot of big shots. You're forcing Jeff Green to hit big shots. You're forcing Jabari to hit big shots. And, this can get you through some games, but this is not something you can steadily rely on. And one of the adjustments the NBA has made is that they've seen that we like to play in pace. And how do you take away that? You trap the guy with the ball in his hands that likes to run in pace, which is Jalen, right? And you you impact that with a man, you kind of being in and out of the lineups. You can see how this has kind of caused us to be a slower paced team, which plays to our disadvantage at this point. One big problem from the Dallas game that you saw was obviously Jabari missing those 2 free throws. Fred missed some free throws as well. This is a thing that has plagued the Rockets the entire season. At this point in our rebuild, we just don't have the guys that can just hit big shots in big moments, especially at the free throw line. You look at the team's free throw percentage in clutch moments, what the NBA defines as clutch moment, last 5 minutes of the game with the score within 5 points, 66%. That's dead last in the NBA. So we're the worst free throw shooting team in clutch moments, and also 123.3 defensive rating. Not a great defense. So you're not getting stops in those key moments, and you're not able to hit your free throws. It's really, really bad for us. Looking at our free throw percentages, Alpi 63.4%, not great. I mean, that's kind of close to his normal. Jabari is a 46% free throw shooter in the clutch moments. Jalen is 68%, which is not great. Fred is the one positive at 83%. and Dylan Brooks is 50% in those clutch moments. You can see in those clutch moments as well. Teams a plus minus. Alp's a -7. Jabari's a -23. Jalen's a -26. And our two vets are -29 for Fred and -39 for Dylan Brooks. You cannot win a lot of games. A lot of the games that were close down, going down the stretch that we've given up that have put us in this position to be on the outside looking in for the play-in came down to those clutch moments. Came down to hitting some key free throws here and there, making shots here and there, and not getting cooked on defense. Right? We gave up. You think about the Clippers game. You think about all these games over the season that we've lost in the last minutes of regulation, and it just comes down to this, right? Is can you hit your free throws? Can you stop the other team? And we haven't been able to do so. This is something they're going to have to just learn to do over time. It comes with experience. When you have a young team and when you have guys that are still trying to define their game, these are the issues you're going to have. To me, the free throw thing is there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for Jabari hitting 46% on free throws in clutch moments. There's no excuse for Jaylen being a 68% free throw shooter, right? Or Dylan Brooks being a 50% free throw shooter. There's no excuse for us being the worst clutch defense in the NBA, being a top 7 defense during the regulation. So these are things that Coach Udoka and Stone are going to have to address on the roster. So I alluded to this earlier. The biggest reason why the Rockets are struggling in these 5 games, especially offensively, is Jalen Green. And it is, partially his fault, but not really his fault. Teams are just taking him away with traps, right? They're blitzing. They're giving him different looks, in the pick and roll, especially in the pick and roll. And that's what Jalen wants to get into, his pick and roll actions. One thing that has increased in Sengun's injury is the number of pick and rolls Jalen runs, right? During the 9-game winning streak, Jalen was running 13 pick and rolls per game, which is a lot. You compare that to the first 64 games where he was only 7. So he's doubled his pick and roll frequency. And that doubling in pick and roll frequency led to a increase in his points per possession in pick and rolls from 0.83 all the way up to 1.06, which is pretty damn good. 1.06 is not super, super elite, but that's pretty damn good. And you can see in this 5-game stretch, it is down to 0.75 points per possession, which is, damn near worse than the league at 9 possessions. So the possessions have gone down and the efficiency in the pick and roll has gone down. And a lot of this is these defenses. You're talking about number 1 defenses with Minnesota, Miami's top 4 defense. The vets that are playing on some of these teams on Golden State, they're trapping him. And it is causing him issues and turnovers. It is causing him issues in scoring because when you can't get into the rhythm like he likes to get into, he can't be as efficient as we want him to be. And I know it's a rhythm thing. You look at the scores from prior, the 7 pick and rolls possessions. A lot of the times, Fred was getting those touches in the pick and roll without P, right? So Jalen would be off ball. And when you put Jalen off ball, I have noticed, and this stretch has really kind of confirmed it for me. When you put Jalen off ball, he struggles. He has to be on ball to really get his rhythm going. That's a good thing and a bad thing, right? That's a good thing and a bad thing. We've seen this stuff. Like James Harden was a guy like this, where when he was off ball, he didn't really do much, right? He didn't really do much. He would just stand at half court or nothing else pretty much. When he's on ball, he's all world, best scorer in the world. We saw the struggles with him and Russell Westbrook, taking turns being great, one being terrible, one being great. Just taking turns, whoever had the ball the most during that game would just be the one that was good. We had about 2 games during that whole season where they were both good together. And this is because those guys are rhythm guys. They like to, pat the ball, like to, get into the groove of the game by playing and dribbling. And this is good and bad. It's good because they can, once they have the ball, they can destroy you, as Jalen was doing to a lot of teams, as Jalen did to Dallas in that first half, scoring 15 points. And then going scoreless from field goals in the second half after they started trapping him, when Fred had to take the handling duties and have him off ball. So this is what I'm seeing. The bad part about this is that you got to play with great players at some point. If you want to win a championship, you're going to be around other great players, and you have to learn to play off ball, especially at the shooting guard position. If Jalen Green was Luka Doncic, then yeah, okay, you could live with that, because when he does have the ball, he's going to make every single pass. He's going to dissect the defense using, every tool in his mind to be able to break down da-da-da-da-da. But Jalen is a scorer. He's a bucket. He's a guy that you just want him to just use his natural God-given abilities to leverage the defense and make the right plays but you're not going to expect them to be like Chris Paul, right? Even though his passing is much improved. So for players like that, the way you maximize the type of weapon that you are is that you have to be diverse in your offensive portfolio. You got to be able to score from different parts of the court, and you cannot let teams dictate how you play. And that's partially his fault, but also partially Coach Udoka's fault, because they're letting teams do that. These past 5 games, teams have dictated how we play. They've slowed our pace down, as I pointed out. They're making us play in the half court. They're forcing the ball out of our best offensive players' hands. And we are conceding that and letting lesser players try to win the games for us. And to me, that's uncalled for. That's something that should never happen with a team and with a coaching staff as smart as we are. And there's no surprise at this point. This has been happening over and over and over for these past few games. And you know what else it impacts? Once Jaylen is out of the action, once you force the ball out of his hands by trapping him, his whole game suffers. You look at his isolation stats in this 5-game stretch, 0.26 points per possession in isolation is negligible. It's nasty, right? Only 4 possessions. You look at the other 4 possessions from the 9-game streak, it was up to 1.22. And then prior to that, 0.74 during the regular season with everybody there on 2 possessions. So I'm putting together this big pattern for Jaylen, right? He is a guy that if you give him the ball and allow him to isolate or play within the flow of the offense and have those reps and touches and usages, he's pretty good, right? When you force the ball out of his hand, not so much, and his efficiency tanks. Everything tanks. So this is something he's going to have to work on. I think this offseason definitely has to diversify his game and find a way to be impactful when teams are trying to take him away. But also coach has to come up with ways to address that. And, let's bring solutions to that. One of the key things about a guard like Jaylen, right? When you don't have, let's say he's not a James Harden. Obviously, there's not a lot of James Hardens in the world. There's not a lot of LeBrons and Lucas. But Jaylen has a rare skill set that, the NBA you just don't find. He is a guy that potentially could be a high 30s three-point shooter with the first step of like a Derrick Rose and the athleticism of like a Russell Westbrook, all wrapped up in one body, right? And you want to find a way as a team, as a franchise, as an organization to leverage this. You know what you need for that? If teams are going to play him the way they're playing him right now, which is the traps, you have to give him a partner that he could play with that not only could score. Ideally, you want them to be able to play make, because once those teams are trapping him, it's going to be 4-on-3 for the team. Now, you guys already know where I'm heading with this, right? During the stretch when they were beating the Washington Wizards of the world, a lot of people outside of our fan base started writing articles about how the Rockets should split up Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And obviously, to me, idiotic. That's not something that we should have done. Or if you understand basketball, you understand that the way that they were playing at that point is not something sustainable. Obviously, the competition level, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're seeing right now is the exact reason why you don't have this skill set just floating around in the NBA. And the skill set I'm talking about is having a 5-man that has the IQ to make pretty much every pass. LeBron and JJ Redick talked about this in their podcast. There's about 3 guys in the NBA that you could give the ball to in a short roll and they can just dissect you.
Is this, which Golden State, when I think of this cut, I think of Golden State, which is essentially same formation. Here's the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you put 2 on the ball on Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Right. This guy's going to have to be the low man. So Draymond rolls, Steph hits him right here. This guy drops. What's going to happen right here, LeBron? As Draymond Green takes a dribble into the paint.
It's a lob.
It's a lob every
It's a
single
lob
time.
every single time. And
it's a lob every single time. You literally can't put 2 on the ball.
You can't. See, everyone thinks that putting 2 on the ball takes Steph out of the play. The problem that you don't understand is that you're now unlocking Draymond's superpower offensively.
Yeah.
Draymond's superpower offensively is the 4-on-3 game. You put 2 on the ball. Now Draymond is 4-on-3 And I'm going to have Iguodala in the pass. Now Wiggs and Kuminga, they're going to be in that opposite corner. And if you help up too early, there's going to be a lob, and that is demoralizing. And the number one thing, it's so much momentum, a half-court lob. So much momentum.
When we used to, that's the worst court I've ever seen, but I'm going to do the same formation real quick, same set. So, like, when we used to teach or learn how to guard spread pick and roll, right? You would do this drill. I'm sure you did this drill. So, you know, here's the defense, right? Here's the defense. And as this guy comes off, the low man pulls over. Here's the basket. The low man pulls over. This guy drops. And the drill was always this. This guy, the ball handler, would skip it
corner,
and you would literally
X
make
out
an
and
X.
get back.
There's an X. But nobody does that anymore. They hit the short roll. And the short rollers now in today's NBA, like if you're a big coming into the NBA right now, what's your player development program look like? It's literally playing out of the short roll.
Yeah, playing out of the short roll.
Especially if you're Jared Allen for the last 5 years, what is he doing?
Short roll.
Short roll.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they're going to attract so much. You have to be able to play out of the short roll. And when you play out of the short roll, it's not for you to score. Yes, you have the ability to score, but you have to read the game. You have to read the game.
Right. I'm going to throw a fourth one on there. We have him. It's called Alperen Sengun. And I've explained this before in prior videos about the pick and roll. The pick and roll is a two-man action. It's a beautiful, beautiful action. One of the most fundamental basketball actions that you will see, right? The pick and roll. It's just beautiful. There've been championships won, multiple championships won just running the pick and roll. The premise of the pick and roll is that you have a ball handler, you have a big man that's going to come and set that screen for them. The idea of the screen is to generate a advantage for the ball handler, whether it's to attack the opposing big man who is likely in drop coverage, right? Who's sitting back. If you have a talented enough ball handler like we do now, back in the day, a lot of those drop coverage stuff, you could do that because guards weren't shooting like that, right? You know, Steph changed that. Dame changed that, right? Now you're borning the Jalen Greens into this generation of basketball, so they're able to make these come off the screen and shoot look easy. But that wasn't the thing back in the day, right? So big men were comfortably sitting back in their drops, daring these guards to shoot, right? Daring them to either shoot or attack them, right? And you would just be waiting there, camping in the paint. As the game has evolved, these shooters, as I alluded to, the Steph Currys, the Dames, the Clays, all these shooters that are being developed have really made it hard for that defense to really, really be usable in key moments. So what teams started doing to address that is they started meeting those ball handlers that can shoot, that can get to the rim at the level of the screen, right? What this does for your team as a defense is that it forces the ball out of that player's hands. And a lot of times, 99.99% of the time, the outlet pass for that ball handler would be a center, right? How many centers do you know can read the court going downhill and make all the right passes? Make the pass to the guy cutting in the corner, right? Make the pass to the slot, right? Make the strong side corner kick out. How many centers can do that? You can count on probably one or two hands in the past 15 years how many centers can do that, right? The most prominent being one Draymond Green, who I call the king of the short roll. Draymond and Steph, you guys have heard me brag about them over and over, that they have basically won 4 rings off of the Steph and Draymond pick and rolls and the split actions that they run. But the reason is because of Draymond's IQ and ability to read, with Steph being the premier guy that comes off the screen and shoot, right? And the reason this is able to work is because when you trap that ball handler, you've committed to say, we're not going to let you score, Jalen Green, like teams are doing right now. And what that does is it gives your outlet valve, for us, Alperen Sengun, the ability to go downhill. Alperen Sengun is top 5 in downhill scoring in the NBA in centers. He's up there with Embiid, with Giannis and Jokic and all that. So you factor that in. You factor the fact that he's one of the few centers that averages 5+ assists, or could average 5+ assists, right? The passing is elite. The passing is elite. So you have this weapon. You have this weapon available to you as a short roll passer, and you're going to let people tell you that you can't use it? You can't use it? That's not right. That doesn't make sense from a basketball standpoint, and that doesn't make sense just from a talent standpoint. What we're seeing right now from Jaylen is he needs help, right? I know a lot of people are going to look at his efficiency, and he has been bad. This has looked as Jaylen from before, but he needs help. And the help is on the bench in designer clothing with 10 rings on. I mean, damn, Sengun had about 10 rings on. That two-man combination that we're going to see from these dudes when they can get it together is going to be deadly. The reason I know it's going to be deadly, you ask yourself, is Jaylen a better scorer, or could he be potentially, not saying he can, than a Fox or Jamal Murray? Maybe. Those are really talented guards. Could he be? Is Sengun going to be a better roll man and a passer than Sabonis? I think so. Is he better than Jokic? I don't think so. So let's say he lands somewhere in the middle. So you have a player in the guard position that is better than, probably, we can safely say, a better scorer than probably Murray. Fox is averaging 30, so I can't just say that out loud. But just on a potential standpoint, it's up there. Then you have a big man that is comparable to Jokic, not as great and probably won't be as great. But I think he'll be better than Sabonis. You got one that won the championship on one end. You got one that's a first round play team on the other end. If we land in the middle, that puts us where? In the second round? Conference finals? The point I'm making with all this is that the formula for them to solve this equation that teams are giving them is already there. It's already there. And it's going to come down to those two guys, right? I pointed out the lack of touches Jaylen had in the first 64 games. Him having 7 pick and roll possessions per game is asinine. That's on Coach Udoka, right? We know he's a rhythm player. We should have never prioritized Fred VanVleet's pick and roll over Jalen Green's, because Jaylen should be getting those reps with Alperen Sengun. You would have been able to leverage more of what Jaylen being on ball brings with an outlet in case teams wanted to trap him. Then you would have reaped the benefits of the other aspect of his game, which is, him scoring in isolation, him being more efficient once he get into his rhythm. Now, like I said, he needs to improve in that aspect of his game as far as being a scorer, not just leaning on being on ball to be effective, but that is going to come with time. But the two-man dynamic between the two is really what we're going to hang our hat on. That two-man dynamic between these two dudes is what is going to take us to the next level. And the ceiling of this team is going to be based on that. The better Jaylen Green becomes in the pick and roll, the better our team is going to be. Because like I said this before, and I don't know, weird spiritual stuff, the big man is the outlet, is the extension of the guard in pick and roll two-man. That big man is the extension of the guard, because once that defense takes away the guard's body, he has to let that game flow through his big man. And a lot of times you kicking that over to Clint Capella, he ain't gonna make that pass. That's a turnover, right? So when you got a dynamic scorer that forces you to make the decision to put 2-on-1, and you're gonna outlet it to his big man that is a downhill scorer to the force of Giannis and can pass as the best of the big man, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So this is what we were robbed of, this year. And this is what really stings about how this season is crashing out, because you just see all the different developments that we've had over this year. It looks really bad how they're going out in this point right now with this 5-game losing streak. But to me, all it does is just kind of highlight what they actually need, right? And for the rest of the team, we just need to lean into what we're doing. I can see a world where Stone and Coach Udoka want to update the roster to get better players in. If you want to compete at the level of Golden State, of Dallas, all these high offensive teams with all these stars and high IQ players, you need better players. You need more blue chippers on the floor to play with. You need guys that have that level of talent, right? We can't live off of Dylan Brooks scoring 30, or Jeff Green shooting 50% from 3, or Aaron Holiday coming in to save us off the bench. These are things you cannot live with. You got to have the blue chippers to compete against other blue chippers. But like I said, even though the loss, the losing is bad, this is just another step in their growth and development as a team. what we've gotten out, the blessing in disguise of Sengun's injury is that it's shown us what Jaylen is. This dude is what we thought he was. He's a bucket, right? He's still a bucket. He hasn't lost it. The Space Jam aliens didn't come and steal his powers. It's still there. How do we leverage it, right? We can see that he gets in rhythm off ball. How do we leverage it? In my ideal world, him and Sengun go to work on the NBA. Fred VanVleet, you're an outlet valve. Dylan Brooks, you're an outlet valve. Amen Thompson, you're an outlet valve. Jabari Smith Jr., you're an outlet valve. And let's just destroy teams off of that. That's what it's going to have to be. You can upgrade the roster, add shooting, go get a third player. Get a third player. You know, there's circulating Paul George around. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people don't like Paul George, but if he was available, I'd take him. I ain't gonna lie. But you know what I mean? It's not all is lost. You know, you just learn from these moments with this team. I think just next year, what is disappointing is the fact that we're not going to make the play-in, right? So that kind of resets, to me, in my mind, what I want to see from them. Play-in is going to be the goal next year. You can't say outright playoffs when you didn't make the play-in. So are they going to be able to smooth out some of these things? It's a big summer for us. Big summer. But appreciate y'all guys for listening. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that.